All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is hopefully the day that the Carolina Panthers, America's real team, secures their playoff spot today. Hopefully, we will see how everything shakes out. Um, keep pounding. That's the first and foremost thing. Very, very, very happy with how the Hurricanes played last night. I'm going to go over all that. We're going to talk about the ever evolving situation with Carolina, maybe trying to add somebody to the roster, all those types of things. We're going to discuss all of that because there's actually a lot to discuss that, now that I'm actually going to legitimately have some time to catch up on it and everything. However, I know exactly where I'm going to be at 1:00. So this will only take about an hour. I'll respond to as many comments as possible, but let's go ahead and jump into it here. So, biggest thing about the game last night, that was a step in the right direction. That does not mean that all the problems are solved and all the fences are mended and all the holes in the ship have been plugged. A lot more to do there. A lot more to do there. Consistent 60-minute effort. I saw that for the most part last night. They looked a little shaky in the first 2 minutes or so. I was a little bit worried about it. Bussy got saved by the post very early on. Otherwise, that game could have been completely different. The complexity of that game could have changed right off the hop and been very bad had that puck not went off the post. Carolina took their mulligan, and they did well from there. Consistent 60-minute effort minus those 2 minutes. So the next thing here, Ghost, Svechnikov both had 3 points last night, 1 goal, 2 assists apiece. Very happy about that, especially Svechnikov. That's the type of stuff that I like seeing out of him. We're going to talk about him a whole lot more here in a minute. William Carrier has been the most consistent forward that the Hurricanes have had when he's been in the lineup, bar none. A guy you look at and say, his role is this, and he does that. Go out there, force turnovers, separate the puck from the player, or separate the player from the puck with body contact, throw hits, send messages. He put Mo Seider over the boards. I made a short of that, actually. Thank you very much for providing the clip, Queen of the Puck. All that type of stuff. Very, very good performance from him. Last night, he recorded 5 hits. Aho, I want to talk about him a little bit. Last night is where I want to talk about, that's what I call a baseline game for Sebastian Aho. He had 1 assist, and he was great defensively. He set up a bunch of chances. I was very happy with how Aho played. That's what you look for when it comes to Aho. That's his minimum. That's what you want to get out of him at a minimum every night. Hold on 1 second. Hey, lay down. Good boy. That's what you want to see out of him every night. Point per game player who plays good defensively. That's exactly the type of track that he needs to be on. So last night, I was very happy with how he played. Additionally, I want to say that was also a baseline game from Brandon Bussy. 20 shots against, 18 saves for a 900 save percentage. He had a 0.57 goal saved above expected and a 750 high danger save percentage. That's about what I'm hoping that we see from Bussy on a consistent basis. The insanity run that he has been on since he came to Carolina, those numbers are not going to last. They're not sustainable, and that's fine. But if he has numbers last night, consistent like he had last night, if he has those types of numbers consistently, Carolina will be in good shape between the pipes. That's exactly what you want. That was a game where you had everybody playing at least at their baseline minimum, except for Mark Jankowski. And some of the shots he missed, I was kind of like, bro, come on, I could have scored that. But I digress. I'm really ready for that experiment to be done. And speaking of experiments, another thing we're going to talk about is Stankoven returning to wing last night. He needs to stay there. I'm going to get into that a whole lot here. Additionally, that snipe by Gostisbehere, beautiful. Jordan Martin, he didn't get a point on that play, I don't think, but he deserves a lot of credit for setting up that screen and not allowing John Gibson to come out and challenge as aggressively as he wanted to and use his size. He helped push him back to make sure that Gostisbehere had all the room that he wanted to shoot. So when you give Shane Gostisbehere time and space, he will make things happen with it, as he has shown in both times that he's been in Carolina. Very, very happy with how he executed that particular play. All around, I was very happy with how the team played last night, and that's the first time I've been able to say that in 5 games. So, was I a little bit worried when Detroit scored the first goal? Yes, but when you look at Carolina only allowed 20 shots on goal, 1 goal against at 5-on-5, 1 goal against on the penalty kill. That's it. That's about as good of a game as you get out of this team with Jarvis and Slavin out. So very happy with how that whole thing went. Nystrom played well last night. I'm dying for him to get a goal. He needs to get rewarded. He's been playing really well. And when we start talking about the current state of the trade market, Nystrom's name is going to come up, not because I want him traded. Teams will call about him. Do not trade him. I would rather let Walker or Chatfield go before Nystrom, because Nystrom is going to be a core piece of this team's defense going into the future, as it seems right now. So I want him to stay. 4 years from now, you're going to have to give him a little bit bigger of a payday than you've got now. You could be paying him up to 4 and 5 times as much of what he's paying now, especially if the offense really starts to come. But I believe he's got, without looking, I think he has 5 assists now. So really happy with how he's playing on both sides of the puck. Very fundamentally sound player. Very good job by Carolina to find him in the draft. All right, so biggest topic in regards to the game last night I want to talk about, Stankoven. Being on the wing, he has less defensive responsibility, because being a center in the Hurricanes lineup especially, but a center in general, but in the Hurricanes lineup, talking about that, there's a lot of defensive responsibility on the centers in Carolina. Stankoven, a lot of the stuff he did away from the puck playing center, really good. The forechecking especially, the back checking was good. It's when he had possession of it and he was under pressure that there were some problems. And if you can't defend and be a play driver, you can't play center anywhere, but especially not the Hurricanes. So I hope that there's some sort of way he stays on the wing, and that the top 3 centers are Aho, Kotkaniemi, and Stahl. If Jankowski's the 4th guy, so be it. I'm kind of sick of him, but, you know, if that's the circumstances they have, so be it. Kotkaniemi has earned the next game at center, in my opinion. Playing with Ehlers and Blake, that line was really good. Stankoven on the wing had 2 shot attempts. Neither one of them got on net, but they were very high-quality shot attempts. He placed a greater emphasis on the forechecking. His puck pursuit in the offensive zone was much better at the wing, so I definitely want him to stay there. Now, before we go into the trade talks, in the event that someone, if a trade is made, and if Stankoven and or Blake is still in town after it's done, which I imagine they will be because they're really good analytically, Tulsky is going to want to keep them where they're at. So that's not going to change. What I do know is if Carolina goes the route of acquiring somebody and it is a winger, I'm hoping that they get a definitive left winger, whether it's a left shot left winger or a right shot right winger. I want a definitive left winger to go on the top line with Aho and Jarvis. And then at that point, the shuffle down starts. Then I want Svechnikov with KK and Ehlers. That line, I think, would work out really well. I've been trying to speak it into existence for a while now, and I'm going to continue to do so. It's basically, it could be a recreation of the Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, and Necas line from a couple of seasons ago. You have a very similar skill set between Ehlers and Necas, except Ehlers also knows how to defend. He's a little bit more calculated with his entries than Necas. And Necas is playing well in Colorado. I think he just needed to be in an environment that suited his skill set a little bit more, and now he's got that. But Ehlers is in an environment that suits his skill set. Will you stop? The dog's being crazy. It's basically, at that point, someone has to move down the lineup. Now, before people say Stankoven is too good to be on, say, the Stahl and Martinook line, I would like to reference 2 other players that played with Stahl and Martinook in the past that were very successful. Different types of players, but you could get similar results. Nino Niederreiter at one point played on that line with them. It was really good. Jesper Fast played even better on that line, and there's a little bit more, there's some more similarities between Jesper Fast and Stankoven than there are, say, Stankoven and Niederreiter. But that line possesses the puck a lot. You want another guy down there who's good at the offensive zone puck pursuit and the forechecking, and someone who can finish on a lot of the chances that line creates just because of how much they possess the puck in the offensive zone and how hard it is to exit when they are on the ice. So that is what I would like to see out of this team. Now, one of the reasons why I'm pushing that so hard is because I don't think the Hurricanes are going to be able to acquire a center. I thought about it all last night. That's part of the reason I didn't do a stream last night was, one, I was exhausted anyway, and I've been working a lot. The second thing being that I wanted to take some time to think about is there any other way that the Hurricanes can improve the team? Is there any way they can acquire a center? I just don't see a way that it happens, and I'm going to go into that in more detail here in a second. So it's more likely that they are going to acquire someone through a trade at the deadline to improve on the wing, preferably someone to go with Aho and Jarvis. That would not be the first time something like that has happened. Michael Ferland was acquired specifically to go with Aho and Teravainen. There were times where Niederreiter played with Aho and Jarvis. There were times where Nino Niederreiter also played with Aho and Teravainen. That's where I think that you need to look for a fit that's a little bit more realistic, because when we look into the center options as they are right now, there's not really anything there that says otherwise. So Stankoven would be the guy that you would potentially move down, or maybe you make a new line with him and Blake if you manage to actually acquire another forward. Kotkaniemi stays in the top six, and then you have a top six and a bottom six with a lot of lethality there and everything like that. So I don't know how all that works and how it looks. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there of what could happen. I'm sure they'll do something, but we're not close enough to that time where teams are starting to sell just yet. And that's what I'm going to get into next. So when Jarvis is back, you definitely want Jarvis back with Aho. Like that's no doubt. There was one person on X who's not very bright who was saying something about the long-term plan was always to put Jarvis at 2C. If that was going to happen, I think it would have happened by now. And they want to reference the whole thing with the shoulder and everything like that. But the thing about it is there's times where Jarvis takes face-offs even with his shoulder like it is. Whether it's because Aho gets waved out or it's because of the set play they're making on the power play is another example. There's times where Jarvis has done that. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see any reason why it would. So those things considered, I don't think we see a change there. Now, next thing here. I'm going to talk about 4 particular players, one of them for not very long. Or 5, actually. So the first one, Sound the Siren actually mentioned this to me, and I want to do more research on him because I don't see him play much because he's in the wrong time zone for me to see him play very often. Gabe Vilardi. I'm going to talk about him at some point. Not today. I want to take a little bit longer of a look at him. I know a little bit about him as a player, but I want to actually really sit down, watch him, take some notes, and get a really good grasp on how good of a player he is. And if I remember correctly, he just signed with Winnipeg, and they'd already lost one top 6 forward who is now a Hurricane, which is Ehlers. So I have to take that into consideration in regards to whether Carolina could or should or would acquire him theoretically. So we're going to shelve him for right now. Robert Thomas, I've talked about him extensively. He has a no-trade clause, and it looks like St. Louis is not interested in moving him anyway. He would have to waive the no-trade clause, so we're not going to talk too much about him either. So crossing those 2 off the list for the time being. Now, that leaves you with 3 options, essentially. You have 2 stopgap options, and you have 1 long-term option. The long-term option, you guys probably know who that already is Elias Pettersson. The biggest thing, like I said, what scares me about Elias Pettersson is not Elias Pettersson, the player, it's the contract. So that's risky. If you make a move like that to get Elias Pettersson, you have to live with it for this season, however much of it he would be here, and the next 7 after that. Because there's no guarantee you could trade him if you needed to. So that's the only problem with looking at someone like him. He kind of warrants a more extended discussion. Jury is still out for me on Elias Pettersson. It wouldn't be the worst move in the world, but at the same time, it's very consequential because the Canes would have to live with it for a very long time. So when you get into more realistic options here, Ryan O'Reilly, that name has been thrown around a lot. Here's the problem with Ryan O'Reilly. The Predators are now only 3 points out of wild card 2, with a game in hand on 2 of the teams that they would be fighting wild card 2 for. They are 6-4-0 in their last 10. So they're probably not interested in selling right now in the position that they're in. So That would also require a decent haul to get a guy who's won a Selke and a Conn Smythe and a Stanley Cup. That experience would be valuable. He's great defensively. He would be good with the young guys. Imagine someone kind of like Burns, but except he's a forward. You would have a lot of those same dynamic if you acquired someone like Ryan O'Reilly. So, possibility, yes. Diminished possibility at the moment. So I don't see that one happening just because of where Nashville is at in the standings, and they still have a chance to make the playoffs. They don't want to waste that big offseason any more than they have to. The big offseason they had last year, they're going to try until they can't try anymore. They're only 3 points out, so they're definitely not out of the fight yet. Far from it. Standings are packed really, really tight for the most part. Now, when you look at the other stopgap option, and this would be my preference over Ryan O'Reilly, would be Boone Jenner. Columbus is last in their division. They are 3-6-1 in their last 10. The problem with making a trade like that is you saw the haul that had to be given up to get Keandre Miller from the Rangers. And even with Columbus being as far down in the standings as they are, you still have to give up more to make a trade like that in the division, regardless of where they're at in the standings. Maybe you can force them to bite closer to the trade deadline if they think that that's the right move for them. And I don't know if Jenner has any trade protection. I will look in a moment. That would be a slightly more realistic option, but you're going to give up even more to get him. And again, that would also only be a stopgap option. Jenner is like, imagine Jordan Staal if he put up more points, even though Jordo's not having a problem putting up the offense this year. So when I consider those options, unless there's someone who comes out of nowhere that we're just straight up not expecting, when I consider those options, I don't see any feasible way that the Hurricanes acquire another center this season. It's just, I just don't see any path to it happening. So that's when you start talking about what are other ways you can improve the team. At that point, you don't need any more defensemen. You've got plenty of those. You can afford to give one of them up. We all know which ones should or shouldn't be moved, so I won't go into that. Reese, yes, Jason Robertson is a left wing. I just don't see any way that Carolina could acquire him. I would love that, though, because I think that he would complement Aho and Jarvis perfectly. And, yeah, it would be pretty funny if Stankoven was it would be pretty funny if Stankoven was traded back to Dallas, but and that can happen now because it's been more than a year since the Mikko Rantanen, or no, that can't happen yet anyway. That would have to be like literally like at the last minute, because it has to be a year since Stankoven has been dealt to Carolina to trade him back to Dallas. So that's not happening either. It would have to be Blake. If you're talking about between those two players, someone you would potentially move out to get Jason Robertson. Jason Robertson has a similar skill set to Andrei Svechnikov. Physical, big, uses his frame to protect the puck, has a good shot, prototypical power forward. He would be great to get. I don't see Dallas giving him up. I think that they're going to try their absolute best to work out a deal, and if they can avoid it, they're not going to trade him to a team that they could potentially see in the Stanley Cup Finals over the course of the next few years, and that of Carolina. So someone like that would be great. Is something like that going to happen? I don't think so. So now, as far as improving the team as wingers go, you had a potential partner with Buffalo maybe, but they're playing really well right now. They're not going to sell. So that's where the Canes are kind of stuck. It's kind of a waiting game right now to see who starts falling out of the playoff picture before you can really have an idea of who you might potentially acquire. So that's the only problems with that. So that's a yes, sound the siren. That's up next. So other things to consider with anyone you acquire. That was that's literally next on my notes, actually. I know it looks like I don't have notes because the light's shining off, but I have a ton of them, actually. Stankoven and Blake's deals kick in next season. That's going to eat a lot of cap. You still have to get Nikishin signed. That's part of the reason that Nystrom deal was so good, because that's one less thing you have to worry about later. That's a number you know, and it's a low number. So that one's good. These seltzers are really, really good. Anyway, The only thing about it is I personally do not see a definitive way that the Hurricanes can acquire another center. I do not see many options on the wing, but that is significantly more possible than acquiring a center. And you just kind of have to roll with what you got. And I see a bunch of KK banter in the chat. I'm not even going to bother addressing that. All I'm really going to say about it is, out of all the people you have on this team to play center, he is your best option right now. Whether you like it or not, it's just the way it is. So Stankoven does not have the size to resist people trying to push him off the puck as much as you possess it as a center. I don't think Rod has been fair to KK. I really don't. And I've never said that about him in regards to any other player. But it seems like he wasn't allowed to make many mistakes before he was sent down the lineup or scratched entirely or something like that. He played well last night, and he had line mates who complimented him, and I can only imagine how much better that would be if Svechnikov, playing on his offside where he belongs, was in Blake's spot. There's a bunch of different things that you can do there. The solution right now is, if you can get a center, great. It's not likely. Left wing, definitive left winger to go with Aho and Jarvis and go from there. That's probably the best path forward right now, unless Tulski comes out of nowhere and acquires somebody that none of us were talking about. And I can't think of anyone. But that's the whole idea of him acquiring someone that we just weren't expecting. I just don't see any way that they can improve the team that way. They'll do something, I'm sure. I'm very confident of that. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have sources like certain other people who are pretending that Seth Jarvis would have been at center. If that was going to happen, it would have been done by now. Now, is it a viable option with the ability to put Stankoven where Jarvis normally is on the lines? Sure. Is it going to happen? Probably not. It would have happened by now. This has been a consistent problem for years. So the whole thing about it is, it's a waiting game right now. Carolina just has to work with what they got. Now, the biggest game coming up in January, if you ask me, is when Carolina plays Florida again on the 16th. That's where they need to have. You saw the response that Tampa had last night. And of course, all the clips going around only show the part where Gensel punched AJ Greer. It's not showing what led up to that, of course. That's the type of response that Carolina should be having in situations like that. Not the whole beer league, just skate away mentality. No, you stand up for your teammates. Until you see that, there is no way that Carolina beats Florida in a 7-game series. A good way to send that message and set that tone is the mentality for the Hurricanes on January 16th. When they wake up that morning, eat your Wheaties, have nails for breakfast, and be ready to fucking go. That is it. So I will now get to the comments, but I'm not going to engage in the whole KK argument thing. The kid catches way too much heat. He doesn't suck. It's just people like to scapegoat him because Rod doesn't, agree with his game. They've got some sort of disconnect there, and he doesn't skate as well on a team full of really good skaters. So, but out of all the options you have as far as somebody who can possess and protect the puck on that second line, it is him. That's just the way it is. Jankowski is not better than him. Stahl doesn't have the offense. Normally, he doesn't. He's had it lately. But if you go into this game, or if you go into the end of this season thinking that Jordan Stahl is going to, save you over Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and I'm not saying Kotkaniemi will, it's just an unrealistic expectation at that point. Kotkaniemi has just been scapegoated a ton. And then when he's gone one day, people are going to find someone else to blame. It's like Dutch said in Red Dead Redemption. When I'm gone, they'll just find another monster. And that's exactly what it'll be. That was Aho for like 5 minutes until he started playing well again. He had a 4 or 5 game stretch where he played like shit and people were ready to send him to China. And he's one of the 3 biggest reasons that the Carolina Hurricanes are not the Houston Hurricanes or the Quebec Nordiques. I know I've talked about that extensively already. All right. Oh, damn. A lot of comments. Holy shit. Slumped, what's up, buddy? Carry some bubble wrap and never let him out of it because we need that guy. Yeah, dude. He's been Carolina's best forward in his role the entire season, except for the few games that he's missed. And I'm glad he hasn't missed many games because he's very injury prone, and that does happen to him. But when he's been in the lineup, he's been absolute money. Last night was one of those games where I posted something about William Carrier is the first star as far as I'm concerned, because last night he brought the sandpaper, he brought the intangibles. When he plays like that, this team is completely different. Grayson, what's up, buddy? Good win for the Canes. Wish we did not blow leads during the 3 Florida games, but I take the bounce back win. Yeah, it's a start. They've got more that they've got to do. That was a step in the right direction, but that's not a, okay, we're out of it type of situation. That's a more to do type of situation. You laid the foundation for it. You've got you've got what you need to start to get over that 4 games, because that 4 games was that was atrocious. Carolina could have been, if they get half the available points in those 4 games, they're sitting a lot more comfortably on top of the Eastern Conference. And the win last night was big too, because Detroit was chasing you for second in the East. So Slumped also says, I think we will all be busy about 12:55. Yes, we will. Since we were in on Quinn and Philip Deneau, who do you think you'd be looking at now? Right now, I mean, I've talked about that a little bit already. It's probably going to be a winger. I just don't see any way the Hurricanes acquire another center. Slump says, a wise man once says, saved by the post, you had cut off all the ankles. That is true. That is true. And as someone who very frequently hits the post, it's typically because, well, one, I suck. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a good hockey player. I'm not. I play for fun. And number 2, I just don't provide offense. I've never done that. But that is true. If the goalie doesn't give you much to look at, a lot of times that's why a player hits the post. But in my case, I hit the post because I suck. That's just me. Yeah, Deneau was never going anywhere in Montreal. Panthers going to whoop Seattle by 20 points. I've seen Sam Darnold play QB before, and I still haven't rid my brain of it. Yeah, that's true. KK is not a 2C. We've tried this already. I'm kind of sick of this argument. I really think that people are just hating on KK because he's easy to hate on. Like, that's all it is. They see him get sent down the lineup, and they're like, oh, I guess he sucks. Well, look, Rod's a great coach, but I'm not going to pretend that he's the perfect coach, because there's no coach that's perfect. But there are people who are acting like that he's Bowman or Cooper, and he's not. Like, can he get to that type of status? Absolutely. But some hardware's got to come home first before that discussion can reasonably be had. So, and let's not forget, KK has had good stretches of play. 22-23, he ended that season really well, and he started the next one well. And then there was the players only meeting in 23-24, and he's never been the same since. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but like something changed, because he wasn't having a problem matching up with other teams' top lines for a while. The first 2 games of this season, that line with him, Hall, and Robinson was really good, and he got scratched out of nowhere for an inferior player, a very inferior player that will not throw a hit to save his life. It says that Jankowski had 2 hits last night. I think somebody made a mistake somewhere. They wrote down hit 77 when they were meant to write hit by 37. Somebody somewhere fucked up. There's no way he threw 2 hits last night. Mark Jankowski doesn't throw 2 hits in a playoff series. He definitely didn't throw 2 last night. Vince Marner's working at center. Hall could definitely move to center. I mean, if we had to try that, I mean, I don't think that the situation is so bad where you have to try something like that. I don't want to move known quantities off if you don't have to. He's better than – I think that Kotkaniemi, ultimately, his skill set is better suited for what's needed there than Stankoven. I was hoping Stankoven was going to turn into Marco Rossi 2.0, and after however many games it's been now, 30-something, I believe, I just don't see it. I just personally don't. Yeah, when KK is given better wingers, a lot of times he works out fine, because he was fine on the Hall and Robinson line, and he was fine last night, for example. When he was with Necas and Robinson last season, he was really good. And when he was with Necas and Svechnikov, he was really good for a long time. It seems like that he's the redheaded stepchild on the team for some reason. I don't understand why. Sound the siren. What's up, guys? Walker has an NTC and Chatty has an NMC. Okay, I didn't remember that here. Actually, that reminds me. I want to look at something real quick on Puckpedia while I'm here. Because Jenner's got the limited trade protection, as you cited. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, Chatfield has the no movement clause. And I'm pretty sure Sean Walker has it too, like you said. So if that's the case, neither one of them are going anywhere. Because I would also love to get Legault in the lineup for. Oh wow, he's got 11 points. That's good. He could have more, but still, I ain't complaining about that. Yeah, he's got the. Yeah, Walker has a modified 15 team no trade list until 26, 27, and then after that, no trade protection at all. And then lastly, we're going to look at Jenner because I think his is a 15 team, if I remember off the top of my head. Oh, no, he's only got an 8-team list. For the duration of his contract, he has an 8-team no trade list. So maybe you can work something out there if Carolina's not on his list. Stank was great on that line last season, referencing Stahl and Like, yeah, I think he would be there. J-Dub, we've been over this. It's like he's getting healthy scratch for a force, and but he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be getting scratched from Mark Jankowski. Mark Jankowski missed soccer nets last night. He had 7 shot attempts. And quality chances that were generated for him, and he did nothing with them. So I'm definitely not going to listen to that argument that Jankowski's better than Kotkaniemi. He's not. The only person on this earth who legitimately believes that Jankowski is better than Kotkaniemi is Rod Brind'Amour, and he's wrong. Just straight up, he's wrong. It's just that simple. And yeah, I'm sure they want to get a 2C. It's just not that easy, dude. It's just not. I'm sorry. It's like that's why I laid out all this stuff here. People are saying 2C, 2C, 2C. You have to get. It's not the video game. You got to get other sides to accept the trade. You can't just lower the difficulty to 0 and get them to do one. It's just not. It's not going to happen that way. Yes, Velarde did just sign his deal. Jets are really missing Ehlers. I think so. Jason Robertson, we talked about that. Boone Jenner, we talked about that. Perhaps a discussion. Yep, Nikishin deal, we talked about that. It's just my opinion, but I can't see this team winning the East or even a cup without a definitive 2C. I think it would be a miracle if they did. It would be nice if they could get someone else there, but that's just down the middle. It looks like they're just going to have to roll with what they got. I just don't see anybody they can get. I really don't. Tampa did it right, yeah. Gensel took a big uncalled slash to the head at center ice and saying, yeah, that'll piss anybody off, even someone who's not like, Jake Gensel isn't exactly known for being a violent player. Sound the Siren says, love RBA, but he's not infallible. That's the big thing. That's what I try and tell people. Anybody who says Rod Brind'Amour made a bad decision about X, Y, or Z is automatically accused of like wanting him gone. And I've never said that. And I probably never will, just to be perfectly honest. I don't see much of a situation where I would be like, all right, that's enough. Get him out of here. I don't see any way that I would want him. I can't stand the thought of him not winning a cup with Carolina, like as a coach. So like he's a great coach. 7 years straight of making the playoffs, fastest to 300 wins. And the reason that is such a German home point with me is people took something I said out of context and just put that on repeat. He's not infallible. That is the biggest and most important thing to remember. One of the, other than the 2 times he put Scott Morrow in the lineup over Nikishin in the playoffs last year against Florida. In Game 5, there was one point where they pulled the goalie. I would have rather have had Taylor Hall out there, but he had just come off the ice. And he put Jordan Martinook out there. I'm still waiting for a valid explanation why that happened. Your season is on the line. You need a goal. Jordan Martinook is not the guy you expect to get it. And I love Martinook. But Logan Stankoven should have been on the ice in that situation because he's more likely to put a puck in the net there. One person even commented and said, well, he was out there to defend the blue line. That's not a defend the blue line situation. That's a score a goal and keep your damn season going situation. That's not what you put Jordan Martinook out there for, except maybe against the Devils, but I don't see them beating Carolina in the playoffs for a long time. Eventually, sure, when Carolina's core age is out, that will probably happen. But, Martinook is a great player. He knows his role. He's a glue guy. He's going to play until he's 50. Rod loves him. Everybody loves him. And, that's not without good reason. But when you're in a situation like that, that's not who you put out there to try and keep that series going. That was another time where I'm kind of like, Rod, why? That doesn't make Rod a bad coach, but that was one of those decisions where I'm kind of like, I just didn't understand that one. No, J-Dub, I know that you didn't say that Jank was better, but there's a multitude of people out there who think that Jankowski is better and that are sexually aroused by him wearing a net guard. And I'm not saying that to be funny. Like, there's people who actually post shit about that. It's fucking creepy. But the whole thing about it is, out of all the centers you have that can give you that top 6 possibility, KK's it right now. There's no one else you're going to get. I just don't see any way it happens. And that's not me being pessimistic about things. I'm not saying that they can't pull something out that we're not expecting. But how long before Serrato is ready? That is a good question. And one thing I'm going to do my best to do, so he's playing with the U.S. Selects at the Spangler Cup right now. I want to see that. I want to see how he does there, because that's a tough tournament. And it's in one of the coolest venues in hockey. Davos has one of the coolest venues in the entire game. Like, it is, the architecture of that building is so sick. That's on my list of things I'd like to do one day, is go to the Spangler Cup just to see. I just want to say that I went. Granted, I better save up money for like 5 fucking years, because it's very expensive to go to, but it is one of the coolest tournaments you'll ever see. Serrato, it's going to be a while yet. I would imagine that Carolina will try to ELC him and AHL him, not this season, but next season. I think they'll let him go back to Penn State and keep developing a little bit longer. Serrato is really good, though. Like, Gavin McKenna owes a lot of his points at Penn State to Charlie Serrato. I think a big mistake the front office made not getting Jack Eichel or Bo Horvat when both were available. Horvat, not so much. Eichel, yeah, Eichel would have been perfect here. And, I this is with me liking Jack Eichel that I say this. I'm not convinced that Jack Eichel is that much better than Aho, but like, he would have definitely been a great fit here. But like, people act like he's miles ahead of Aho, and he's really not. He still would have been great to have here. So you crack me up, brother. Yeah, same to you, pal. And it's all love. I have absolutely nothing against what you're saying about it. And please don't take it personally. It's just more so the fact that, like, I just think that does Kotkaniemi deserve some of the heat that he gets? Absolutely. Does he get too much of it? Because, it's kind of like it's like mob mentality and incitement. It's like every time that he walks through Lenovo Center, half the people are like, and I fall into this half, obviously, are like that he's being misutilized and he's not being treated fairly and all this other stuff. And then the other half are wanting to recreate the Russellheim massacre, starting with him. So that's the whole thing with it there. All right, well, it is 11:55. I have stuff I have to do today. I am going to be listening to the Panthers game on the radio for the first quarter, and then I will be able to watch the rest of it. Everybody, thank you very much for joining me. I should be able to do both shows tomorrow. I'll get to this last comment here. I know we have Ehlers, but still missing Martin Necas because he was a good player, and add that he gave me a puck in Tampa as well during warm-ups. Yeah, I really liked Necas. I really did. And, I've said this many times. Martin Necas had more God-given talent than anybody the Hurricanes ever drafted, by far. There has not been a single player more skilled than Martin Necas that the Hurricanes have ever drafted. He just couldn't put it together in the way that needed to be put together to play for Carolina, but I did really like Necas. And I wish him all the best in Colorado, and so far so good for him and everything like that. What's funny is Serrato was playing against Brendan Lemieux yesterday because Lemieux was playing for HC Davos. Yeah, that's pretty funny, actually. I'm surprised he's able to play, though, because I guess it's over now, but I remember he got suspended for assaulting an official or something like that. And when I saw that, I'm like, that sounds like some shit that Brendan Lemieux would do. Good job, Pepe. I really liked him too, though, so I can't say anything. And, the fact that he and my boy Tony DeAngelo are such good buds, like that also helps. But all right, everybody, that's it for me. Being thankful and critical is fair. I think so. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I don't want anybody other than Rod Brind'Amour coaching the Carolina Hurricanes, not for the foreseeable future. Like, I really don't. And if there was a definitive upgrade out there, I'd be like, okay, come on, let's wait. Let's give Rod some runway here. He's not infallible, though. He has not made every single perfect decision imaginable. So, everybody, have a good Sunday. Keep pounding. Go Panthers. Keep pounding. Just like you said, J-Dub. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Like I said, I should be able to do both shows tomorrow with no problem. And day after that, I should also be able to do both shows for that as well. But during my week off, I'm also going to sit around, fast, drink a bunch of water, and play NASCAR 25 because I've hardly got to play it as much as I wanted to, and I'm working on writing an essay for it so I can do a video review of it and everything. All right, everybody, have a good day. Keep pounding.